Hello, my name is Brent Massey, and I'm a Christian author. And today I'm going to talk to you about one of Perry Stone's dreams that I included in my book, The Writing on the Wall: America's Future Seen Through Dream Interpretation. On the screen here, some text of his dream as I explain it here from the book. In 2015, I wrote a book on Christian dream interpretation. After I finished writing that book, I read Perry Stone's book on dream interpretation. I was amazed to see that he had a dream about the Gulf oil spill and also one about 9/11, because my book had dreams about those same events that a Christian friend, she was helping me work on the book, she'd given me to include in the book. Perry had a vision of the 9/11 Twin Tower attacks 5 years before they happened. So I was thinking it was 1996. In the same vision, there were 5 tornadoes that symbolized 5 Wall Street stock market crashes. That's my interpretation of it. His interpretation is different. So I'm going to go ahead and read that dream to you, and then after that I'm going to interpret it. The following is Perry Stone's 1996 vision. It's actually a vision, and there's several retellings of it, because since then, it was almost 30 years. He's been sharing this dream, through conferences and in his writings and these kinds of things. So what I'm going to do is compilate all those various retellings into one interpretation, but I'm going to give you at least one retelling here just to read through so you can have an understanding of that dream. Okay. He starts out, I went upstairs in the bedroom and had my Bible with me, and I was opening my Bible trying to read when a spirit of slumber came on me, and I just fell over. My head fell over the Bible, and I was just out of it. And only about 4 times in my life I've experienced a vision, a full-color, 3-dimensional vision that's just as real as me looking at this studio, just that real. And in this vision, I was walking up a hill. A sidewalk was on the left and on the right. Now this hill was actually a paved road. Sidewalk on the right, sidewalk on the left. And I remember I was dressed, but I was barefooted, which would imply, being not prepared. And I remember as I was walking up this road, I looked to my left and my right, and there were homes. And for some reason, I absolutely knew they were homes of retired ministers. I remember how that I looked up, and when I looked up, I saw that the sky was perfectly blue. At the top of the hill, there was a large concrete barrier. I remember how that I saw from the center of this blue sky a cloud that was totally black. It was shaped almost like a skyscraper building. It wasn't a building, it was a cloud. But it was just square at the top and narrow, and I didn't know what that was or where it was going to. So I said, I'm climbing to the top of this hill and find out what this is. Now I remember in this vision thinking, I'm having a vision. This is a vision. What am I going to see? I didn't know. I climbed to the top of the hill and looked over, and when I did, here's what I saw. I saw that dark cloud, and I saw where that dark cloud, and I'm going to show you a picture of it. I had an artist draw this out. So you can find this picture on the internet here. It's a picture of the cloud and the field and the corn and the tornadoes. I had an artist draw this out. I saw this dark cloud that looked just like this. The sky was perfectly, it's also in his book too. The sky was perfectly blue, and there were 5 tornadoes spinning off this cloud. When I stood up here and I saw this black looking tower, now it actually looked like a building covered in a dark cloud. That's the way I described it earlier. I said it's like in the shape of the World Trade Center, but it was dark. I didn't see the windows, and that's the part that's puzzled me for a little bit. And when that building was burning, and when I went home to see television and I saw the black cloud, I told some men with me, I said, that's why I saw blackness covering the building. So so he's talking about when 2001, 5 years later, when he saw that, he made that association with this dream. Now in the vision, 5 individual tornadoes. Now the artist has drawn them as a twister. They were actually straight like this. They were wide at the bottom and very narrow at the They were wide at the top and very narrow at the bottom, but they were orderly in fashion. And the left one on this side, sparks began to fly, and it set one off, which this one off, which set that one off, which set that one off. And I remember thinking this tornado would take out one row of corn, and when it was complete, this one would follow it, this one follow it, follow it, follow it, follow it. And what it would be one storm after the other, taking out one row of grain. Now remember, and that the whole field was not affected. Only sections of the field were affected by these storms. All right, now let's look at this and see if we can gain some insight after 5 years on perhaps what it could represent or it could mean as it relates to events that recently happened. All right, the World Trade Center, as you know, was attacked. That cloud represents, I believe, the attack which took place. And I'm telling you, when it took out a row of corn, I mean it was a narrow row. It wasn't the whole field now, let me get that straight. The whole field was not affected by this, but there were sections that were totally affected. Okay, and there's another retelling in my book, and there's also others you can find on the internet and that sort of thing. I'll go ahead and explain to bit by bit what he's saying in this dream. So he starts off the first section and he's talking about walking up the hill, and there's homes of retired ministers, and the sky was perfectly blue. Perfectly blue is a time of peace. So this is something that's happening in a time of peace. At the top of the hill, there's a large concrete barrier, and that's Wall Street. And he talks about it being a wall and climbing up on that wall later on. And so it was the cloud. There's a sky in a cloud that was totally black in the blue sky. It's shaped almost like a skyscraper building. That's the Twin Towers. Obviously, you got to explain that this part of the vision has already taken place. So it was the attack. The blue sky is a time of peace. It was attack in a time of peace on America, the Twin Towers attack. So next part he's talking. I remember in this vision. Let me switch this one back so you can see that. I climbed to the top of the hill, looked over. When I did, here's what I saw. I saw that dark cloud. I saw where the dark cloud, I'm going to show you a picture of it. An artist drew this out. I saw this dark cloud look just like this. It was perfectly blue, and there were 5 tornadoes spinning off this cloud. As I continued up the hill, he sees a pillar cloud in the blue sky, a symbol of 9/11 terror attacks that take place 5 years after his dream. Center of this blue sky, a cloud that was totally black. It's trouble in a time of peace. Smoke also symbolizes destruction. So he talks about, now in the vision, 5 individual tornadoes. You go down a paragraph. The artist has drawn it as a twister. They're straight like this. They're very wide at the top, very narrow at the bottom, but they're orderly in fashion. Left one on the left side, sparks began to fly. The tornadoes represent a stock market crash. In the last COVID stock market crash, the market fell rapidly, and the downward progression looked like Perry's bits of lightning, little jags, bits of lightning that go downwards. And the if you look at the graph of it, it's very narrow at the bottom, wide at the top. The crash, it's not like a twister, but it's just this V shape that's very narrow at the bottom and wide at the top. And orderly is something that's done in a well and organized and controlled way. So I'd never seen Perry in person, had only listened to 4 or 5 of his sermons in the past. While I was writing this book, a friend sent me a link to one of Perry's sermons. So I was writing this book on The Writing on the Wall, America's Future Through Dream Interpretation. Someone sent me a link to Perry's sermons. In that sermon, Perry mentioned he was coming to Hawaii on February 14th to the 16th of 2020, and it'll be the first time ever he's coming to Hawaii. I thought this was God's way for me to meet with him and tell him about this book and my interpretation of his dream. So I saw him preach, but unfortunately he disappeared and I couldn't talk to him. But little did I know that his visit was a precursor to the first tornado, which happened 7 days later on February 23rd. The first tornado, which is the first stock market crash as a result of COVID. On February 24th, 2020, I dreamed I was carrying my then 2-year-old daughter in a front pack. I was trying to go up a hill that was like plastic beads or something, blue and pink, and it was sliding down on me. This is like a day later. I looked up and it was very steep, mountain hill, And I figured that's okay because I climbed a hill this steep before. The beads are piling up so that I can't climb but slide back. I look to the left and me to a ledge and go sideways in that direction to try to regain my footing. So on February 24th and 25th, the day of this dream and after 2020, there were the third and fourth largest stock market point drops. So in my dream, the bead-like avalanche, this is the bead-like avalanche in my dream, which is symbolized by pink sheet and blue chip stocks, which the pink and blue beads, which are pink sheet and blue chip stocks. Pink sheets are low-priced penny stocks. Blue chips are usually large stocks of large, long-standing companies. Okay, I'll continue on. So in Perry's vision, he goes on to talk about sections of the field were affected by these storms. And I think that you can see also with the COVID one, that there were sections of the economy that were hit by this this stock market crash. It wasn't the whole economy. Okay, and looking at another retelling, he talks about walking up the hill. In 2016, I wrote a book called Sofa Church. And at the end of that book, I interpreted this dream, this Perry's 9/11 tornado dream. And the wall at the end of the street, and the wall of the street as a symbol of Wall Street. I had interpreted the 5 tornadoes as 5 stock market crashes, which I'm doing now. But at that time, in 2016, I interpreted it, 8 years ago, I said the first stock market crash was the dot-com crash of 2000, and the second was a 2008 crash. And the last 3 had yet to come. It wasn't until later that I realized the 5 stock market crashes wouldn't occur until Perry reached retirement age. And that hit me in August of 2019. All of a sudden I had this epiphany. I was like, wait, that's what the symbol is in the dream of him going up the hill. He describes on either side of the road were small brick homes. For some reason I thought they were homes of retired ministers. That's kind of a hint. There was a retired minister. In Perry's dream, he began walking up the hill, beginning the road towards retirement age. Then he's stepping on a sidewalk, which is steady progress towards a goal. And then a straight paved road that led to the top of the hill, symbolizing an uneventful ride to retirement age. He would climb to the top of this hill and find out what this is after reaching the top. So he's going to understand this dream when he gets to that retirement age. So Perry turned 60 in 2019. And Perry had this vision in 1996. But the tornadoes started happening in 2020. Because in the vision, they're in the distance at the far edge. So this is something that's far out. It's in the future. Whereas at the very beginning of the dream, he could see the cloud of the Twin Towers. So that attack that was coming in the near future. But he had to walk up this hill. He had to reach retirement age before he could actually see the tornadoes on the other side of the wall. And that's when they began. Was right after he turned 60 in 2020 was the first stock market crash. So, in the second retelling, he talks about, and this is what I saw. I saw a cornfield that was from this direction to this direction. You couldn't see the end of it. From here to here was about 300 yards or so, maybe 400 yards. So the yards are a symbol of years. If you look back to history, the Virginia Company of London was a joint stock company chartered by King James in 1606 to establish a colony in North America. In 1624, the Virginia Company's charter was revoked by King James due to an overwhelming financial problems in politics, and Virginia became a royal colony. So that's 400 years ago. That's the first colony in America. The Georgia colony is the last of 13 colonies. It was established in 1732. So that's about 300 years ago. So in the dream, he said 300 yards, or maybe 400 yards. This dream is about the prosperity through the stock market in these stock companies. And he has a second dream vision, which ends with the papers are everywhere, like in the 1929 crash. I'll share that second one at another time. Second vision, he had this related to this that has 5 tornadoes again. So in the vision, there's beautiful corn. The most beautiful ripe corn ready for harvest, golden tassels on top. That symbolizes the height of American prosperity. So he moves on. I remember seeing something that appeared to be a cistern or a well of water when the third one came. So These tornadoes are ripping through this cornfield, and then the third tornado comes, and I saw a water cistern here, like a well with a concrete well. In Barry's dream, they ran across old-fashioned power lines at the base of the tower behind the cornfield in tornadoes. So I shared this with one prophetic friend of mine, and she said that she commented, if this third tornado affects the cistern, it could be our loss of power grid on a national scale, which means no way for the masses to get water. Many believe the single biggest threat to our society today is the lack of water. We can only survive for 3 days without it. Perry's dream shouted food supply because it's in conjunction with water and power. Water, food, power, 3 things we depend upon. It seems to me that the cornfield, cistern, and old power lines were part of one picture mixed with a separate picture of tower, street, wall, and houses, rural and city. My comment is water systems are used to collect rainwater and don't rely on power, and are a symbol of water shortages through drought, either or power outages too. Drought or power outages and or. So at the end of the dream, he's still barefooted. So at the beginning of the dream, as he said, he interpreted that barefoot means he's unprepared, or America's unprepared for what's going to happen. He's more a symbol of America is unprepared for what's going to happen, and still unprepared after all this happens. Then the last bit here, that's something he says. That's something else important to remember. And I said 2 times. Now it's important you understand. I said this twice, not once. This part was quickened back to me the other day because he's relayed this dream many times. Vision. I said 2 times, I have to get to the cleft of the rock. And then I said it the second time, I have to get to the cleft of the rock. Now, all of the times I've ever told this, it struck me the other day that 2 times I talked about the cleft of the rock. Well, there's positive references and negative references in the Bible to the cleft of the rock. And obviously this is a negative dream. And the cleft on the rock is I think about Obadiah 1:3. Obadiah 1:3 talks about, in the Bible, the arrogance of your heart has deceived you, you who live in the clefts of the rock, in the loftiness of your dwelling place, who say in your heart, who will bring me down to earth? Obadiah 1:3. This is a verse about a nation that will be humbled. And so he says it 2 times. And there's another scripture that talks about speaking in dreams twice. And that's Job 33:14-18. Indeed, God speaks once or twice, yet no one notices it. In a dream, a vision of the night, when sound sleep falls on men while they slumber in their beds, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction, that he may turn man aside from his conduct and keep man from pride. He keeps back his soul from the pit and his life from passing over into Sheol. Job 33:14-18. So that again is about pride and being humbled. I think that's what that end of that verse is. So there are other retellings that he has, and there's bits that were not included in these 2 that I've read through. In one retelling, he says, the other 4 were preparing to move in the same manner, each destroying a line of corn from back to front of the cornfield. As I looked from left to right, it appeared endless. On a stock market chart of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, each recession crash is shaped like a tornado, obviously. A line on a stock chart progresses from left to right, and that's what he was saying. As I looked from left to right, it appeared endless, and it appears endless as it continues to move forward because the ticker just keeps going and going and never ends. There were 5 tornadoes. He says of equal height, equal space, wide at the top, very narrow at the bottom, and orderly in fashion. Perry said the tornadoes moved from back to front. Back to front is a method of looking at historical market volatility to predict future volatility, as it tends to move in the same manner. The 4 subsequent tornadoes, I believe the 4 subsequent tornadoes will mimic the movement of the first tornado because they were equal in height, equally spaced. And he said, now don't forget they're equal in height and equally spaced. The tornadoes were equally spaced, I believe, because there will be an equal amount of time between each one. And they were equal in height, so the market will follow the same distance as it did like in the first COVID one. So another bit he says, another retelling. By this time, the tornado would reach a barrier. The second would rip a row of grain out. And I remember thinking that this one was going to take out 1 row of corn and come to this barrier. And when it got to this barrier, the second would follow. When it got to the barrier, the third one would follow. So they're hitting this barrier. And my explanation is the stock market trading is halted when it drops at 7, 13, and 20%. This happened on March 9th and 12th of 2020, the COVID crash. On the 12th, the market hit bottom. Each tornado will reach a barrier, then the market will climb, rev up. When this one got going, it started revving that one, and repeat the cycle over again. So it's going to crash, go back up, and then eventually do the same thing, create this cycle. And then last thing was that in one of his retellings, he said this left. He mentions that only sections of the field were hit, but at the end, the very end, he says this left the entire field behind the wall completely bare. After these 5 storms pass, the market won't rev back up again. It will remain a completely bare market. The bear market is one that is going down, stock market going down instead of up. In the end, he saw all the corn wiped out, the prosperity symbolized by the corn. The Wall Street at the end of the wall at the end of the street was not affected. Wall Street, that is to say, the New York Stock Exchange, will survive just like it survived previous crashes. So in my next video, I will share his part 2. Another vision he had was 5 tornadoes, where it's they are people running into a church, and also he has some things about his own ministry. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time, God willing.